to another edition of Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing that will create a better environment for citizens. I'm your host, Ursula Ramlayal. Thank you for joining us. In this week's presentation for the period March 21 to 28, the 2014 national budget expects to create a better Guyana for all. Education gets the largest chunk of the budget, while several key sectors will also benefit. And SWAT team completes first set of training. The education sector will see the commencement of several critical projects, all aimed at infrastructural development as well as capacity building at all levels within the sector. This year's allocation stands at $32.3 billion, surpassing last year's allocation of $28.5 billion.
Out of the total allocation, $2.9 billion is expected to be spent on construction, rehabilitation, extension, and maintenance of educational facilities, including a new and expanded Zeeburg Secondary School, Region 3, and the Cato Secondary Complex, Region 8. Also, the first year of the new Education Strategic Plan is expected to be rolled out. According to Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh, through this year's allocation, emphasis will be placed on improving literacy rates, early childhood development, teachers training, enrollment in single sciences, and technical vocational educational programs.
We recognize that equipping our young people with technical and vocational education training skills linked with entrepreneurship training is an assured option for enabling their own prosperity. And this year we will expand opportunities to include occupational programs to support the mining and hospitality industries. Continued emphasis will also be placed on tertiary education, with an allocation of $1.5 billion towards the operation of both campuses of the University of Guyana, inclusive of $450 million for our student loan program. Later this year, our students will have the option of online degree programs for the first time ever as a result of an investment made last year.
The Teachers Training College will continue to offer its existing programs as well as focus on the appraisals and development of lecturers, including having some teachers pursue postgraduate degrees. Efforts will be intensified to eliminate illiteracy and strengthen public awareness to ensure that parents understand their vital role in the literacy development of their children. In the area of ICT, government will allocate resources to ensure that an additional 2,500 teachers are trained and all secondary schools are equipped with computer laboratories before the end of 2014. Further, the budgetary allocation will cater for the implementation of a US $10 million Universal Secondary Education Initiative. Meanwhile, in 2013, the government of Guyana expended $28.5 billion towards the final year of the last strategic plan. A sum of $2.7 billion was spent on the infrastructure of schools and other educational facilities, including commencing the reconstruction of the 1 Mile Primary School, Lavin Shore Secondary School, and Parfait Harmony Primary.
Several key roads and bridges projects, all aimed at alleviating much of the current traffic bottlenecks across the country, will be undertaken this year under a carefully thought-out budgetary allocation of $13.7 billion.
Of the grand total, the sum of $12.9 billion will be spent on roads and $844.2 million on bridges. The 4-lane access road to the Cheddi Jagan International Airport and the East Bank Demerara 4-lane highway are slated for completion this year. Further, works will commence on the west coast of Demerara Road and will include pavement rehabilitation, pedestrian and cycle lanes in selected high-traffic areas, and street lighting.
Government recognizes that investment in physical infrastructure remains a critical prerequisite to accelerated economic development, given the existing infrastructure gaps. Improved linkages with our neighbors, within our borders, between producers and consumers, across and within communities, all lend themselves to improved competitiveness and connectedness.
Provisions have also been made for the widening of the East Coast Highway, and road construction works for the upgrading of Better Hope to Belfield will commence. Construction of the Perico Ruby Back Dam roads will begin, thus opening access to over 330 farming households and over 2,000 acres of mixed crop farming. Engineering designs for the canal polders, number 1 and 2 roads, and feasibility studies and designs for the extension of the highway from Diamond to Timeri will be undertaken. On the East Bank Berbice, studies and designs will be completed, and the reconstruction of 6 kilometers from Stanleytown to Everton and upgrade of 11.5 kilometers from Bellevue to Light Town will commence. A financial feasibility study for the construction of a bypass road from Ogle on the east coast to Eccles on the east bank, which will open new areas for development and investment and create a second route to reduce the congestion for the East Bank Demerara traffic. This will constitute the first phase in the development of an alternative route to the CGIA. An amount of $7.7 billion is allocated for the improvement of rural community and hinterland roads for street lighting from Bellevue to Potentia on the west bank of Demerara. Negotiations have advanced substantially between the Brazilian and Guyanese technical working groups regarding the preparation of a design study for the construction of the Lindem to Lethem Road.
Despite parliamentary challenges, Guyana's economy grew by 5.2% in 2013 and is projected to grow by 5.6% in 2014, marking 8 successive years of economic growth. Reporting on the state of the national economy during the 2014 budget presentation, Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh said it was projected for a 5.6% growth this year. Growth performances for various sectors were also noted.
Over the biennium, the Guyanese economy has continued to grow at an annual average of 5%, at a time when growth in the Caribbean averaged 1.3%. Foreign direct investment totaled $507.7 million when FDI flows elsewhere have been contracting dramatically. Private sector credit expanded by 34.6% cumulatively, and our external debt has declined from 46.7% to 41.9% of GDP. Over the same period, our government has invested a total of $89.8 billion in the education and health sectors, and a total of $20.7 billion on our country's roads and bridges network. We have injected $9.7 billion into the sugar industry and spent a further $6.2 billion subsidizing electricity in Linden and Kokwani.
He added, however, that some sectors did not fulfill expectations, such as sugar and fisheries. Other sectors all projected significant growth for 2014, making Guyana an outstanding country for macroeconomic stability due to prudent fiscal management. The growth projection for 2014 includes the growth of the sugar production by 15.6%, rice by 1%, livestock by 3.3%, with forestry pegged at 3.3%, and gold at just 0.7%, because of the uncertainty of world market prices. Other projections are health 4%, education 3.85%, and other services 7.6%. Government has allocated $4.4 billion to the housing sector to further stimulate housing development and to consolidate on the gains made in the sector. 5,900 new house lots are to be allocated and processed, and 4,100 land titles distributed to new landowners. Housing development will continue at Eccles, Diamond, Anna Catharina, Iflot, Bath, and number 77 Village, among others. In addition, through the continuation of the public-private turnkey initiative, another 100 houses will be constructed, and an additional 50 police officers, nurses, and teachers will be allocated land to construct their homes. The sector will also see the completion and distribution of another 176 core homes, the disbursement of 134 coastal home improvement subsidies valued at $26.8 million, and an additional disbursement of 54 hinterland subsidies valued at $54 million, benefiting 1,248 people. Government's vision for the housing sector is to further the realization of better living conditions for Guyanese through the development of sustainable and viable communities. Government will not stop until every Guyanese is able to have access to adequate and affordable shelter. In 2013, a total of $3.2 billion was spent on the housing sector, 4,417 lots were allocated, 5,326 titles processed through the Turnkey Housing Initiative, more than 90 single-flat concrete houses were constructed, whilst under the Young Professional Housing Program, 55 homes were completed, among other interventions. Stay tuned, there's more of the Weekly Digest after the break. Parents with school-aged children will achieve a measure of relief with the provision of $10,000 per school year for all school children in the public schools. This from the 2014 budget is in addition to the school uniform voucher, which will continue to be distributed.
Ghana's tourism sector is definitely on the rise. In fact, even in a fledgling stage, it can still rival those of the Caribbean. Now, with an investment of $800 million for the establishment of a hospitality institute, the country is poised to receive even more international recognition.
The provision of $1 billion via the national budget for the execution of cleaning and sanitation works in the nation's municipalities is an indication of government's commitment towards providing a healthy environment and keeping its citizens safe from various diseases spread by insanitary conditions. Half of this amount will be used to clean the capital city of Georgetown and begin the process of restoring it to its former status of the Garden City.
In an effort to save citizens from possible increased electricity tariffs, Budget 2014 has allocated $3.7 billion to support critical capital expenditure for the Guyana Power and Light Inc., while an additional $3.2 billion was allocated to ensure that residents of Linden and Kokwani continue to benefit from electricity at a subsidized rate.
The 2014 national budget has allocated $32.3 billion for education as government continues to emphasize a sector which has undergone significant transformation in response to the emerging needs of society. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Guyana welcomed the first cruise vessel for 2014. The passenger ship Minerva docked in Guyana for 2 days, bringing 350 passengers.
As Guyana's stature as a viable tourism destination grows, the country continues to attract a number of cruise ships. This was Minerva's second trip to Guyana. The ship last visited in 2004.
Tourism here is kind of fledgling. We have just last year received a total of about 200,000 visitors. So it's small, but it is growing. And even arrivals to the country grew last year by 11.6% ahead, or double world average, and double that of the Caribbean as well. So a lot of good and positive things are happening in Ghana, and we want to ensure that more, cruise ships can visit. 350 odd passengers is excellent for a start to this first quarter this year.
The ship's 2-day cruise activity in Guyana is under its 83-night Grand Faces of South America tour, sailing from Bridgetown with a round trip. The passengers, in addition to being conducted on city tours, also enjoyed lectures on the indigenous people of Guyana, Guyanese culture, and the Mangrove Project.
The cruise is fabulous. The second time I've been on this ship. It's small, it's personal, and it's educational. On every stop, we have lectures about, the area, the history, the animals, the plants you find. And we also have a lot of workshops. I live in London. I'm Guyanese, born and bred, but I've been living in England for the last 50 years. And I'm so pleased to be here. And in fact, I chose this cruise because it was stopping in Guyana.
Over the past few years, Port Georgetown has welcomed the Saga Pearl II, the luxurious cruise liner Levant, the Clipper Adventure, the MV Spirit of Adventure, the Minerva II, the MV Hans Cetic, the MV Vistamar, and for the first time in 2013, the National Geographic cruise ship. Cruise arrivals are important to the local tourist industry, which has seen vast growth and recognition by renowned tour operators and promoters. To cater for this growing tourism industry, government will this year be investing $4 million in the establishment of a hospitality institute to ensure that Guyana improves its human resource capabilities within the sector. The objective is to produce world-class personnel to meet the kinds of demand that the growing industry beckons.
26 carefully handpicked officers from the Guyana Police Force are well on their way to becoming the country's first formalized Special Weapons and Tactics Unit with the recent completion of the basic phase of training.
The second phase of training has already commenced, and it is anticipated that by the end of August, they will be fully equipped with the requisite expertise to operate as SWAT operators.
The main purpose of a well-trained and equipped SWAT team is to save lives. These police officers have been introduced to the capabilities and principles of a SWAT team. Now these police officers have completed the basic portion of SWAT training. These police officers now understand the principles of close quarter combat and what those principles mean. They know that surprise is not something unexpected. Speed is not fast. Violence of action is a controlled event. They know the difference between cover and concealment. They know how to dominate a room, eliminate a threat, and control any situation.
The Home Affairs Ministry has reaffirmed its unequivocal support to the SWAT team, which is a fulfillment of a commitment that was made by the government in its 2006 and 2011 manifestos.
Human rights is now a focal point of attention within the ambit of law enforcement. Respecting human rights of every single Guyanese, upholding the human rights of every single Guyanese, these are basic tenets that you will have to ensure are upheld.
This year's national budget has allocated $19.5 million to the security sector, an increase of $2 billion. Of this sum, a significant portion will go towards training, $1.2 billion will go towards the completion of the forensic lab in the Fire Service Training School, and a further $2 billion will be spent on transportation and other equipment.
Healthcare delivery will be further advanced through the $21.5 billion, which will seek to integrate the delivery of quality, effective, and responsive health services and prevention measures to improve the nation's physical, mental, and social well-being.
The sum of $2.4 billion has been budgeted for the construction and upgrade of healthcare facilities countrywide, including the Port Kaituma District Hospital, Linden Hospital Complex, Kukwani Hospital, the Acute Care Facility at the National Psychiatric Hospital, and the Georgetown School of Nursing. $910 million will go towards the construction of the Specialty Hospital, and $382.7 million for the purchase of medical equipment. The sum of $117 million is allocated for the purchase of 12 ambulances, which represents a 40% increase in the national fleet. In an effort to continue both primary and specialized health care, over $428 million has been allocated to train 20 additional postgraduate residents and upgrade over 4,000 providers. In keeping with the focus on maternal and child health, the sum of $50 million is allocated to commence the extension of the maternity facility at the Georgetown Public Hospital to ensure increased bed capacity, while $22.6 million is allocated for the establishment of maternity waiting homes in Linden and Bartica to cater for antenatal high-risk mothers. Meanwhile, a national commission will also be established to oversee the accelerated implementation of the national plans for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases, and $50 million has been allocated to launch a public health education and outreach program. Recently, the government launched the updated National Health Strategy Health Vision 2020 for the period 2013 to 2020. The strategy seeks to integrate the delivery of quality, effective, and responsive healthcare services and prevention measures to improve the nation's physical, mental, and social well-being.
Like all national budgets, the 2014 national budget has unveiled measures to improve the lives of Guyanese and the fortunes of the country. Under the theme of A Better Guyana for All Guyanese, the budget seeks to turn around the sugar industry, improve rice industry competitiveness, boost the income of pensioners, provide additional support to parents, and ensure Guyanese continue to benefit from low electricity rates, among others.
The $220 billion budget of 2014, targeting accelerated economic growth and social development, will see an infusion of $6 billion to Gaisuku to help the sugar industry achieve its reversal of fortunes. $500 million will see the rice industry retaining its competitive advantage, whilst $200 million will be used to help push agricultural diversification. Rural development will be further strengthened this year with a sum of $1 billion, and US $4 million will see the establishment of a hospitality institute to ensure the tourism sector produces world-class personnel. A further allocation of $100 million will go towards the improvement of Port Georgetown's. $3.7 billion will go towards critical support of the Guyana Power and Light Company, without which steeper tariffs would be unavoidable. Additionally, $3.2 billion will be used to meet the cost of maintaining the electricity subsidy in Linden and Kokwani. Pensioners will enjoy a 50% increase in assistance, bringing it to $30,000 per annum for pensioners who were customers of the GPL, in addition to a 5% increase on their monthly pensions. Hinterland Roads has seen an allocation of $1 billion to be expended on rehabilitating critical interior arteries, including the Linden to Lethem roadway. Furthermore, a Clean Up My Country initiative has seen the allocation of $1 billion, of which the sum of $500 million will be dedicated to immediate efforts to clean the capital city. Parents with school-aged children will achieve a measure of relief with the provision of $10,000 per school year for each child within the public school system. This is in addition to the school uniform voucher program, which will continue to be distributed. This initiative will benefit the families of the 406,000 families of the students of public, nursery, primary, and secondary schools, and will cost government a total of $2 billion.
Government continues to work towards a cleaner Guyana, and in this regard, the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development recently signed a $1.5 million agreement with the United Nations Development Fund for the Guyana Solid Waste Management Project.
The three-component project is being funded by the India-Brazil-South Africa Trust Fund, but is however being implemented by the United Nations Development Program. It is aimed at the strengthening of solid waste management in Guyana.
This project, therefore, will provide very important equipment, logistical and otherwise, to assist within the overall plan of the government in reforming collection and waste management, and will particularly contribute to the logistics of that.
It will see the rehabilitation of the 6 municipal markets and the placement of washroom facilities at the newly constructed market tarmacs. This will further encourage vendors to utilize them for vending purposes rather than occupying the corners of roads and pavements.
The escalation of the problem of solid waste in this country rose about the same time as people started to do vending on the reserves, on the roadsides. So when you talk of roadside vending, you also talk about the increase in the solid waste that it has brought about. The two go hand in hand. We have sought to deal with this issue in many ways, as I pointed out. We have expended significant amount of our resources to build markets, which we have handed over to the local government bodies, the municipalities, the NDCs. We have constructed tarmacs, and we have invited the vendors on the roadside to go and occupy and use these facilities.
The project also has a public awareness component which will seek to encourage and educate the citizens on environmentally friendly practices relating to solid waste management. 2 compactor trucks and semi-excavators will also be purchased to aid in garbage collection and dumping at the Hags Bush landfill site aback of Eccles. A board will also be developed to oversee the project. This board will consist of 8 representatives from the different ministries, including health, agriculture, and finance.
Stay tuned, more of the Weekly Digest after the break.
The importance of road linkages in Guyana's hinterland to propel economic growth and improve access to services is fully recognized. To this end, Budget 2014 has allocated $1 billion to rehabilitate critical interior roads, including the Linden to Lethem Road.
Pensioners will enjoy a 50% increase in assistance, bringing it to $30,000 per annum for pensioners who are customers of the Guyana Power and Light Company Incorporated. Further, old age pension is to be increased by 5% with effect from May 1, 2014 to $13,125 monthly, targeting the 42,500 senior citizens.
Government's investment in rural development will be further strengthened this year with the sum of $1 billion which has been provided in the 2014 national budget. The sum will go towards infrastructure such as roads, bridges, drainage and irrigation, and community market facilities, along with entrepreneurial activity in rural communities. Evidence of government's commitment to the sugar industry, Budget 2014 makes a provision of $6 billion to Gaisuku to help the industry reverse its fortunes. The provision will redound to the benefit of the 18,000 workers and their families and to the other 120,000 persons directly or indirectly benefiting from the industry.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. The 2014 national budget expects to create a better Guyana for all. Education gets the largest chunk of the budget, while several key sectors will also benefit. And the SWAT team completes first leg of training. Please note that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Join us again next week as we highlight more of government's programs and policies which are enhancing the lives of Guyanese. I'm Ursula Ramdial. Do have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.